We are recording the interview of Pamela Toliver. This interview is being conducted by Keturah Edwards and Jennifer Sheevy from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. It is 12:45 p.m. February 24th, 2017. Okay, first question is, where were you born? When and where?
I was born in Springfield, Ohio, which is about half hour from Dayton, and I was born on November 30th, 1954.
Okay, who are your parents and what were their occupations?
My father was Edgar Toliver, and he worked a lot of different jobs. He worked manufacturing and then other jobs. My mother, and he's passed on, my mother, Shirley Toliver, for a number of years she was domestic, as in the movie The Help, and then she found a job at the hospital, and she worked there in minor surgery, cleaning instruments.
Next question, do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have a brother, Jeffrey, who lives in New Mexico. He has a doctorate in educational leadership. I had a brother, Timothy, who has passed on, and then my youngest brother, Eddie, who is also a veteran, and he was also Air Force, and he did missile maintenance.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, what were you doing before you entered the service?
I was a single parent when I entered, before I entered the service, and I was just doing regular jobs, and just before I went in, I worked at the newspaper in Springfield News and Sun, and what I did was I worked I was called an inserter, so we took the paper that came off the press, and we actually took the ads and then used a machine to insert those, and then they were sent out to the different subscribers.
Wow. Okay. And which branch of the military did you serve?
United States Air Force.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted. No draft when I came in.
Okay. So why did you choose the Air Force?
Well, I was a little older. I was in my mid-20s, and I was a single parent. And also at that time, there wasn't a whole lot. I had gone here to Wright State, and I was originally going to be a nurse, and it just didn't fit at that time, and being young, and I wanted to do something different, and I wanted to see some of the world a little bit, and I wanted stability, and I felt the military was a way to achieve that.
What happened when you departed for training camp or during your early days of training?
That was interesting because it was a whole new world. I was in the 03rd Squadron at Lackland, and it was just different in trying to put so many females together and learning that team concept, learning how to work as a team. And I remember one incident where we weren't doing what we were supposed to do. So our training instructor took all our shoes, and we had those black ugly shoes, and he threw them all in a big pile, and we had to work together to get those separated and to each person. So you learn team concepts, and that has followed me to this day. In working with people and doing things as a team, I'm always into team concepts. So a lot of that I learned in basic has followed me to this day.
Do you recall any of your instructors in basic?
Sergeant Rao, Julie Newton. I saw her. She was at my first base, and I remember walking up to her, and I said, "Oh, you're Sergeant Newton. You're the one that chewed me out on the course, the running course." And she was like, "Oh my gosh." And there was one other who I don't recall. So I do remember them, and I remember we all went to church together on Easter because I was in Easter. And I remember Sergeant Rouse' daughters came in and put a little Easter basket on everyone's chair. So once again, learning that camaraderie.
Did you receive any specialized training? If so, what?
No, well, after Lackland, I was in casual for a little bit. I knew I was going to go into personnel, military personnel. And so I was in casual waiting to go to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. So I remember being in casual, and you just kind of, you go out and you do different jobs. You work at the cafeteria, so just to keep you busy. And the one thing I hated about being in casual, because Texas has snakes, and there was a sign when you would go downstairs and it said, "Beware of rattlesnakes." Pammy doesn't do snakes. And I was like, "Can you go down with me so I can do my laundry?" And so that was one thing that I vividly remember. And then I was only there maybe like a week and a half, and then we were bussed off to Keesler Air Force Base.
Okay, next question. How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
Physical, the Air Force, we're not like the Marines, we're not like the Army. I remember one Army person said, "Oh, the know-it-all Air Force." It was good, but we only had to run once a year, okay? And our physical fitness was not tied to our promotions. Some ways that's good, some ways it's not. As far as chow hall was the bomb. I mean, the food was great. It was just different, especially breakfast, midnight chow. It was just a different culture. So you learn that, and it just has that different feel when you go onto a base, and you miss that. You really miss that, and not only do you miss it, but your dependents miss it too. So it was something that I just learned every day, and so it was great.
You mentioned you were a single mom when you went in, right? What was that like for you, being away from your child?
Right. Well, here's at that time, going into the military itself, you had to have a waiver to go in as a single parent. And my recruiters worked with me and saw that I was really dedicated in going in, and they worked hard to get a waiver. So that was the reason why I went into personnel, because I knew that I wouldn't be deployed, as much, and I knew that I would be, I didn't have like shift work. So that was the one reason. And she was away from me while I was in basic and tech school, and then until I got housing at my first base. So, and she was 6 when I went in. And so once I got in and then was settled, then she joined me. And then she would stay with me 9 months of the year, and then during the summer she would come back here to Ohio. So it was good, because she was one of the reasons why I went in, to show that there were other environments than just a small town in Ohio.
Hey, where did you serve?
I served, after basic was in Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas. Then I went to Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. Then my first duty assignment was Patrick Air Force Base, Cocoa Beach, Florida. My office faced the ocean. There was the parking lot, Highway A1A, and then the ocean. My base housing, I could walk from housing to the ocean. So I was there for 4 years. Then I PCS, Permit and Change of Station, to a special duty assignment in Seattle, Washington. I did ROTC duty for 5 years at the University of Washington, which was really interesting. And then from there, I went overseas.
Well, what was your duties then as an ROTC?
What I was the NCOIC, so non-commissioned officer in charge of personnel. So a lot of our cadets were on scholarship, so we activated their scholarships. We made sure they were in academic good standing. We made sure that they had their medical, and then when they got to their junior year, that's when they found out what they were going to do. You kind of knew after a while who was going to be going into pilot, who was going to be a navigator, who was going to be, at that time, missileer, and then who was going to go into maybe another, like personnel or supply. And we had, we commissioned him a second lieutenant. So if you remember, an officer and a gentleman, when they would get that first salute, they would give that silver dollar. One of the silver dollars I got was pure silver. And I still have that dollar to this day. So, yeah, really cool assignment. Then I went to Germany, Lindsay Air Station, Wiesbaden, Germany. And then finally to Biloxi, Mississippi, where I separated.
Oh, wow. So what kind of friendships did you form while in service?
Oh, good. I'm still friends with my babysitter who babysat my daughter, and my daughter is now 43 years old. So we are still friends. In fact, they live in Virginia, and they were one of the reasons why I ended up in Virginia before I came back here. A lot of my daughter's friends that she knows on Facebook that she went to high school with are on my Facebook also. Back to the one friend that we met in Florida. Her son was 3 years old now. Now he's grown, a father. He's a lawyer. Some of the friends that I met were on Facebook. When I had a friend in Germany, they used to call us the Bobbsey twins because you never saw one without the other. We lost touch, but now we're back in touch. So you gain those friendships that are ongoing and that last over the course of a lifetime. And you would be amazed at the people that you run into. We ran in, a friend of mine, we went to Mardi Gras, we ran into a doctor stationed in Germany with us, and we were like, what are you doing here? So you never know who you're going to run into, who you're going to see, and those lifelong friendships are everlasting.
So, like, what did you do while you were in Germany? Like, how was the life over there? Food?
Oh, food was great. Food was just phenomenal. Schnitzel, that was great. We used to take, here's what happened. I got to Germany September of 1989. October of 1989, the wall came down.
Oh, yes.
I was ticked because I wanted to go to East Germany. And the wall came down. I was like, it's been 50. Who would thought the wall would have came down? I mean, I'm glad. A great blessing. But still, it's like, couldn't it just last for another couple of years? But it was great because what happened was you got to see people come from East Germany here. And they weren't used to seeing things like wash machines, like turning. And they weren't used to seeing, just a taste of good fruit. So it was really phenomenal. The other thing was we like to go shopping. And at that time, Czechoslovakia was shopping, so we would catch a bus, especially if you caught Rudy's bus. You would go and you would drive through, you go through Nuremberg, you would stop at the border, and there were actually Russian guards at the border, and so they would take all your passports and, you stamped them. And then what we did was we would, I don't want to say it, Pam. We would do things on the black market. Like we would take hams because you're only supposed to bring so much back, and we were on with Army wives, and you're only supposed to take so much money. I know there was like $50,000, $60,000 on that bus. And what they would do is they would take two people, volunteers, they would take them and they would take the money, and then they would meet Peter. So the bus would stop, these two women would get off, they would get in the car with Peter, they would exchange all this money, and then later on about 4 in the morning, the bus would show up at this farmhouse with the lights off, the ladies would get back on, and then here's Rudy and a couple of volunteers, it's like at a bank, counting out money, and then they would go and they would buy these chandeliers, and they would go to the Russian department store, and so then when we come back across the border, they're supposed to look. So that's when we would give all the guards hams, flour, sugar, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And we went 3 times to Czechoslovakia. And then you started noticing how things would change. All of a sudden you would see cars from the West, like Camaros and, showing up in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And I went there. I've been to France. I got, I got claustrophobic on the Eiffel Tower. We went to Nice. We went to Monaco. Just a lot of fun, a lot of different things. My daughter, she and her friends for spring break would go to Spain. So all this culture you would see, and it was just a lot of fun to really be stepping back in time because, it was just a different time and a different era, and you got to see history changing. That was what was cool about when the wall came down, that you were actually seeing history take place, and how all of these people were just now, they had opportunities to meet family that they hadn't met in so long. So
that was great. 1989. So in Germany, your daughter was with you. So how did you stay in contact with your parents or family members?
We would call we would call each other once in a while. It's not like it is now. You would watch the Today Show at 2 in the afternoon, because of the time. People would write you. A lot of times in Christmas time, you would get cards, and it would just say any service member. And those meant a lot because it was nice for someone to think of you overseas, and that someone took the time to do that. So it's really great. Especially for me, and I was during peacetime, and but now when you have so many service members over in Iraq and Afghanistan, when they get those packages, and just that means a lot because you know that they're being thought about, and it's very, very appreciative.
Mm-hmm. So you served during the Gulf War, right? Mm-hmm. So where were you when it ended?
So that was what? It
was February 28, 1991.
91, yeah. So I was overseas. I was in Germany.
Oh, okay.
So I was in Germany at the time. So a lot of people that we would process them to be deployed. So they would have to make sure they had a will. They had to make sure they had the dog tags. They had to make sure that they had everything in order because they didn't know if they were going to come back. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of daunting to know that you had people that were actually going to be gone. We had to make sure that they had enough retainability, which means they had enough time in service to go. And that's what I did a lot. I did a lot of the re-enlistments. I did a lot of the extensions of enlistment. So we had to make sure of that. And so fortunately, I didn't know of anyone that was killed in action. So, but it really made you think when you actually were sending people off in harm's way.
Okay, wow. So how was your return home?
I didn't want to come back to the States. I'll be honest with you, I didn't. Because people are so much closer overseas. Mm-hmm. We would go to my girlfriend's house for Christmas. So all of us would show up there. And we would show up there at Christmas. And people would bring their presents. And, we had alcohol. And, we had plenty of food. So we stayed there. You're much closer overseas. And then when you come back to the States, it's that culture of, everybody's busy, everybody's doing different things. You don't have that. And that was one of the reasons why I left. I wanted to stay overseas. And you have people that, you know, you're just, you since you're out and about and you're over there, you stick a lot closer together, you know, and you help each other out. One of the things that people would do, you know, when you go over there, you go by to the lemon lot and you go buy this cheap car. Well, everybody would leave their car with me. Pam, can you get rid of this car? I'm getting ready to PCS. So one time, I mean, the MPs came and said, Sergeant Toliver, you have 3 cars. I said, look, man, I'm getting rid of all of them, you know, because they would just leave them with me, and then I would end up, somebody would come in, hey, you want a car? I can give you a car free. So it was coming together, and it was a time when people watched out for each other and were really close, and you just really enjoyed. One of the things we loved was Lindsay Fest. I was on an air station in Wiesbaden, and it was in the city. And so when you went on the front gate, you could see the back gate. But every year we would have Lindsay Fest, which means everything would close down and they would bring in, it was a carnival at the parade field. And, you know, they would bring like, you know, you would have the beer tents, you would have, and then each squadron would sell something for their squadron. So, and you didn't work. You either worked or you went to Lindsay Fest. Well, duh, I'm not gonna work. So you had, I mean, and then they would let, you know, like, you know, the locals would come in, you know, the Germans could come in, and it was just a lot of fun. And they did that every year. Every year we would have Lindsay Fest, and it was just so much fun. So.
Okay, so,
did you ever get the opportunity to travel again like that after you were out of the military?
No.
Oh.
No, no, and it's hard, you know, because when I left Florida to go to Seattle, I drove cross country by myself. So I drove down through the South, then, you know, up through Texas, Oklahoma, then, you know, let's see, Oklahoma, yeah, and then I got up through Kansas. And, you know, and Kansas was kind of flat. And I said, well, I know the rock, I'm going to be hitting the Rockies. And then when I hit the outside of Denver, I was like, I can't drive through that. Because, I mean, I was like, what? So I drove up through Wyoming and then Montana. And, you know, I was in Butte, Montana. Ain't nothing in Butte, Montana. So let me just say this. So anyway, so I'm in Butte, Montana. And there's not a whole lot of people of color in Butte, Montana. So I'm walking down the street, and I meet another lady, African-American lady, and so we meet, we're like, hey! And I said, I know you don't live in Butte. And she goes, no, I'm from the Social Security Administration. I'm here auditing books. I said, well, I'm heading to Seattle, and I'm just passing through. So it was just so funny just to see that, you know, and then, you know, to drive up through Wyoming, and Wyoming basically doesn't have a speed limit, you know, so... And it was just cool because it showed that that was something I could do. And I mean, I drove up by myself in this little Pontiac that was stuffed. And it was just, you know, and I mean, by the grace of God, you know, he was watching over me, because I remember stopping someplace and talking to some truck drivers. Well, nowadays, you don't know. I mean, somebody can grab you, next thing you know, you're in human trafficking. And I was like $130. You know, I mean, I was, you know, back in that day, you know, I mean, they could have grabbed me, but you know what? It didn't happen. So, you know, but it was just a great experience to do that.
okay, once you got out of the military, how did your family and community receive you?
Oh, they were fine. I had made a decision to leave and came back and went to moved to Virginia because I didn't want to come back to Ohio, because I felt if I came back to Ohio, then I failed. But I didn't want to be too far away. So that's how I ended up in Virginia. My friends from Florida that my daughter's babysitter were in Virginia. They lived in Newport News. So I stayed with them for a while. And then eventually I migrated up to Richmond, Virginia.
How was that traffic?
Traffic is ugly. Yes, traffic is ugly in Richmond. It really, traffic's ugly in Richmond. Traffic's ugly in DC. I mean, 3 in the morning, that beltway is packed. So moved to Richmond, and then I came home. I would travel home, so that's a 10-hour drive. I've done it every which way, and and I got tired of driving. And then getting older, and I have grandkids, and I have 2 great grandkids now, and so I felt it was time for a change. So made the decision a number of years ago to eventually move back home.
Now, after you got out of the service, did you stay in personnel or?
No, first of all, I got a job at a temp job. Okay, that temp job was 18 months long. I lasted there for 18 months, and I worked for a pharmaceutical company, and I worked in maintenance. So I did I updated a lot of preventive maintenance schedules. I paid their electric bill. And then from there, I moved to product quality, which was, on the box of Advil or Centrum, you got that 1-800 number. I worked in that department. Wasn't on the phones, but I did a lot of the grunt work. So people would call and say, I bought this 60-count bottle of Centrum, and I only got 59 tablets. I want my other tablet. So I would either write them a check, I would send them a new bottle, because I had a little drugstore, or I would, send them a free product coupon. And so I was there for 11 years, and then Pfizer bought them out. But luckily, I had been there long enough to get health care and, little bit of a retirement. So, and then I had also decided to go back to school. So I went back to school the week after 9/11 is when I started. And so I made that decision because I said, you know what, I've got to do something. I just don't want to work at this job, so I was trying to be proactive. So I went back to school, and even though I went to the Wright State in the 70s, all my gen ed courses transferred. And they were like 30-some years old at the time. So I was like, woohoo! So I went to Averett, which is a little liberal arts school in Danville, Virginia, but they have outlets. So I went to Richmond there and got an undergrad in business. And then decided, you know what, business is great, but then decided to go back to school and didn't want to get an MBA. So I got a master's in education and adult learning with a human resource track, which allows me to do a lot of different things. And then 2 months after I graduated with my master's, I got laid off. Yeah, I got laid off, and that was during the crunch. So, just trying to find a job was really, really difficult. So that's when unemployment had expanded, and I would take money out of my 401k, which you should never do, trust me. So anyway, long story short, did a lot of volunteering, did a lot of networking, and from that I was able to get a job at and because of that volunteerism, I got a job working for Caritas in Richmond, Virginia, and they do a number of different things. They run a homeless shelter for families, men and women, but the shelters are in churches, so they go around from churches. And then I worked with men who were located at the Healing Place, which is a homeless shelter for men who are suffering substance abuse. And that was the works program, so I was the career development manager. So I taught some classes on resumes, phone interviews, things like that. And then after they completed that, then they were in like a little internship where we do different things around the organization. We would pay them a little bit of money, but the biggest thing was to help them get a job. So that's how I got involved in workforce development.
Wow. So have you remained in contact with your other fellow veterans?
Yeah. Facebook is a huge.
Have you reunited with them?
No. Now my daughter has. My daughter goes to her high school reunions because she went to H.H. Arnold. Okay, she went to school. One of her fellow classmates, believe it or not, is Prince's ex-wife, Maite. Yes, yeah. She went to school, and because because Prince met her in Germany.
Mm.
She was. Her parents were stationed over there, and so that's how that happened. So we stay in touch. My daughter stays in touch with her friends, and it's great because you can connect with people. I remember one airman. Somehow he had talked to my daughter, and so she was like, "Did you know Pam Toliver?" And he goes, "Yeah, she was up on the 3rd floor." And my gosh, he stayed in, and he's got like 5 kids. Another airman that was assigned to me. He's now a master sergeant, married, and for a while there, I didn't think old boy was gonna make it, And then I had one airman who, Gene Pulaski, that kid, he was from the hills of South Dakota, just the greatest kid ever. So on our evaluations, you only have so many lines, because back in those days we typed. So I said, Gene, I only got like 15 lines. You got 40 lines of stuff. I can't get all this in here. And never had to tell him to do anything. And he was just a really, really good kid. And got married. And his wife just then later on decided that she didn't want to be married anymore. So we all, including me, wanted to go beat her up. You mean to tell me you're getting rid of Gene? And he ended up going to OTS. Finished college, went to OTS, really doing well. Came to see me at Biloxi. I fixed him a cheesecake and really was really well. And then he was on his way to his first duty station. And I was getting ready to go catch a plane, and he was in an airport van. The van got into a crash, and he was the only one killed. Wow. And to this day, I still say Gene is one of my guardian angels. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really one of the best kids you ever want to meet.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organization?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, when I was in Seattle, I had met with a bunch of Tuskegee Airmen at the time. So I became, kind of not a Tuskegee Airman, but they have their affiliates, So I met a lot of Tuskegee Airmen there, and that was great. And then here, I deal a lot with Operation Pathfinders here. And so in my job here, what I do is I help veterans find employment. So that can be all the way from someone who just retired and is on terminal leave, all the way to someone who is homeless and living in the DOM at the VA and needs help. We help a number of people who are what they call returning citizens. That's what they call people now who are ex-offenders. They try to reintegrate them into society. So I work with a number of them. I go to Veterans Court every other Wednesday because Montgomery County has a specialty court for veterans who have gotten in trouble. And so they go through this program at Veterans Court. And so once they graduate that, then, they still have the charge, but they're not in jail, in prison, that type of thing. And we see a lot of people with a lot of, especially the post 9/11 service members, the combat members have a lot of issues, anger management, learning disabilities, PTSD, all of those. And then we also see a lot of individuals who were before that, some of them, I'm even working with some Vietnam vets, trying to help them as well. So it has its challenges, but it also equally and even more so has its rewards. And just trying to get them to a place, not to find a job, but to find sustainable employment. Everybody has the inalienable right to have employment where they can have a decent roof over their head, food on their table, and maybe not the newest car, but something, and they can have the quality of life that this country is about, so they can pursue their happiness. So that's what I try to do, and I'm put in a situation where I couldn't do this job if I wasn't unemployed for 2.5 years myself, if I wasn't, if I didn't go through helping people that had drug addictions at the Healing Place. And then I was in another program where I helped, which is ran by the Department of Labor, where we help older people over the age of 55 with getting work experience so they can find jobs. So it was a way of positioning, or God's way of positioning me to get to where I am today. Because I couldn't do this job if I didn't have my own experience and that I didn't share those experiences with others. So it's got me to this where I can actually help veterans move forward and hopefully live a productive life.
Is the success rate of that program really high?
It's been interesting. So I moved back here in July of last year. Mm-hmm. And so we had a veteran that was running that program. And so since that time, myself, and then we have another part-time person, we've tried to take that program and we're enhancing it. Because it's one thing, if you get a job someplace and then, you have to look at the individual instead of saying, okay, there's a job here, go apply for it. Because some of these individuals, some of these service members, like we're overseas, they can't stand, or they have a number of, health issues. So you're going to have to find them something that, they can make a decent living, but at the same time, they can endure the job. So that's what we have to look at. And as far as success rate, we are becoming more and more successful. We work with a number of different companies. Before I came here, I was with a staffing agency partnering with them. So it has been a success. Our original goal was to get 5,000 veterans a job by 2020. Then we said, well, we don't know if we're going to make that, so then we went 4,000. So now I'm looking at, we want to get as many people, not jobs, but sustainable employment, by 2020. So that's what we're looking at now. Not so much the quantity, but the quality. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're shooting for.
That's great. So how did your wartime experience affect your life?
I think just not so much, because I knew, a lot of people went into the military because, they were, getting in trouble at home, or they wanted to get away from parents, and then when war happened, when war became a reality, some people were like, well, I really don't want to go to war. And I was like, well, nobody does, but that's what we signed on for. And so it affects me, the fact that everybody, every day, is not promised. But when you're at war, it's a hit to you every day. It's a hit to you every day. You just don't know. It's more prevalent to you every day. So you happen to see that. So in understanding that, especially I guess with Gene's death, because he had so much, but he lived so much. He learned fluent German over there. He went on all these different things. He had a German family that kind of adopted him, and all these different things. He was on the honor guard. So he lived a full life. So I think it's important for me, what war brought to me was, you should try your best to live the fullest life you can. I hope to learn how to swim, hopefully go back to Europe one day, just different things, the small things, mm-hmm. That you want to do that makes a difference.
So what are some life lessons you learned from the military service?
Well, Happiness is not getting what you want, it's wanting what you have. I learned that camaraderie is everything. Always look at things in a different lens, not just your own. Quit being so angry. And one thing I just can't do here like I used to do in the military, leave the job when you leave it. You know, I mean, I can't do that, you know. So, you know, when I left that job on Friday, I left that job. Now, I would go in, you know, like I'll tell you this, one day I got dressed, put on the uniform, got to work, and I was like, dang, you know, it was a little early. And after a while, I was like, dang, where is everybody? It was Saturday. So, you know, the life, and then enjoy what you do and take risk. You have to learn to take risk. And once you learn to take a risk, it will better you. And it will better those people around you.
That's great. Okay. How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
I think we have to have a military, not so much to go out and fight, but to keep peace. You know, you're hearing all this stuff now about Syria and everything, and you know, I remember the word détente. I remember when the Cuban Missile Crisis happened. And I can remember, I was only 62, so I was like 7 years old. And I remember going outside and looking up to see if there was missiles coming, you know. And so I understand the importance of having a military. I understand the importance of the culture, the importance of the camaraderie, the importance of all the things we do. I'm sure like in basic training, you know, you had to fold your stuff a certain way. You probably still make your bed the same way. Your towels are folded, your underwear is folded the same way. All those things have a purpose. And the purpose is to make sure that when we move forward, we have peace. This is a different time because the wars that we're fighting now are so different and they're so ideological, and so it's hard to wrap around how to handle that, because you know a lot of it is dealt with religion, you know. And so, but this country was founded on freedom of religion, you know, freedom of speech. And so it's important to do that and make sure that we are a part of that. So war is not a good thing. I mean, I remember Vietnam. You know, I remember them, you know, coming, you know, you would hear like, you know, they would tell like a soldier had died. And so coming through that and understanding that, you hope that it never does happen. You hope that we don't have to continue this war, but I'm glad there's no more draft, you know, that everybody has that choice, and people that serve can serve freely and with honor and distinction. So, you know, you don't want it, but you understand why, that sometimes it may be necessary.
Nice. What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
You can make a difference no matter how little it is. You know, people want to be the big general, or people want to be, you know, the person in charge. I have learned over the years, it's the person that does the grunt work that a lot of times makes the difference. So don't think about, oh, well, I'm not doing anything that's important. Everything you do is important. Everything you do in the military, and we don't know what type of military there may be in the future. I mean, now they've got robotics, they've got, you know, these exoskeleton things that you can put on, so we don't know what's going to be. But I do know that moving forward, and not only that, but also a lot of this technology. I mean, you know, driving a car, I don't even use my cruise control, so you know I'm not gonna use a car that drives itself. So I think moving forward, you know, knowing that you wanna keep this planet safe, you don't wanna destroy this planet, you want to make sure that there is a sense of détente. That's a word that hasn't been used in a long time. You know, even though you have this person, we agree to make sure that we try to keep as much peace as possible, because you want this planet to continue and move forward, and we don't want to destroy it. So, and there's ways of doing that without infringing on someone else's freedom. So you want to make sure that you learn, and then also help others to learn. Didn't say teach, because teaching's one thing, but learning's another. And my final thought on that is to use, I always tell everyone, use every opportunity, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, to learn.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
I think when people go into the military, it's not just them. If they have families, they're a connection with that. If and how that was with them. You know, a lot of people in the military get divorced. You know, the divorce rate's really high. That has a big impact. But also just the fun, because it was fun. And a lot of people get out because it wasn't fun anymore. You know, so have fun, learn from the fun, and then, you know, but use that, you know, you want to take care of business, but you also want to have fun. And I do that now. I like to have fun at work, and I enjoy that. And you want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can do.
Okay, well, this concludes our interview. Thank you for your service, Ms. Pamela.
Thank you.
You're welcome.